It was supposed to be a normal Friday. She texted from the airport. Love you. See you Sunday. I believed her, until Saturday night when the evening news turned my world inside out. There she was, live from a gala in Chicago, the anchor calling her the guest of honor. My wife. The woman who said she was at meetings. The camera caught her laughing beside a man in a tailored suit, his arm wrapped around her waist like a promise. I remember dropping the remote. The sound it made was small, but that's when everything in me broke wide open. And that's where my story really begins. That was the moment everything changed. Chapter 1. The Trip Announcement. I've always believed that the small things tell you the most, how someone hangs their coat, or whether they look you in the eye when you ask a simple question like, "What time will you be home?" Those tiny truths add up. The night my wife Hannah announced the business trip, the small things felt like an orchestra out of tune. She stood in the kitchen with her phone face down on the counter and a half-packed tote at her feet. The low hum of the refrigerator felt too loud in the silence between us. 3 days? She said, stirring her tea. Chicago. Training for the new rollout. I nodded, pretending to scroll through emails on my laptop. What day are you flying? Tuesday morning. Back Friday evening. Her smile was precise, like it had been measured. You'll be okay with Daisy? Daisy, our golden retriever, nosed my thigh like she always does when the room feels strange. I'll be fine, I said. You know I will. I paused. Why didn't you mention it sooner? Her spoon clinked against the mug, tap, tap, tap. It came up fast, she said, eyes flicking to the face-down phone. I could feel my jaw tighten. She used to talk about everything weeks in advance, packing lists on the fridge, shared calendars, the works. Now there was just a text I wasn't supposed to see and a plane ticket I hadn't heard about. Who else is going? I asked. Just my team. She rinsed her mug, water roaring far longer than necessary. We'll be in sessions most of the time. I wanted to believe her. I did. We've been married 8 years. We've been broke together, happy together, tired together. We always told the truth, even when the truth made us look small. Okay, I said. Send me your flight info so I know when to pick you up Friday. She dried her hands on a towel and smiled again, that careful smile. Of course. That night I couldn't sleep. I lay awake listening to the house breathe, the pipes settle, the clock tick. I told myself I was overthinking, that people go on trips, that marriages have quiet phases. But a colder voice whispered, since when does Hannah put her phone face down? At 2:13 a.m., she turned away from me in bed and her phone buzzed on the nightstand. Not loud, just a cricket in a distant field. She didn't move. I watched the shadow of her hair on the wall, and for the first time in our marriage, I wondered, am I supposed to look? Or am I supposed to trust? By morning, I had chosen trust, because love without trust is a body without bones. But as she zipped her suitcase, I noticed the new red dress folded inside, still with the store tag. Conference dinner, she said, not quite meeting my eyes. Right, I said, knowing our company never did conference dinner like that. The car service app pinged her confirmation. She didn't ask me to drive her to the airport. Chapter 2. The Suspicion Grows. Tuesday felt wrong the second the front door closed. The house wore her absence like a dress 2 sizes too big. I fed Daisy, answered emails, tried to work. My code wouldn't compile. My brain wouldn't either. Hannah texted at 9:42 a.m., boarding now. Love you, I typed, have a safe flight. Love you too. And I meant it, even if the words were heavier than usual. Around lunch, I checked our shared calendar, the one we'd built together when everything was simpler. Her trip wasn't there. The squares for Tuesday through Friday were blank as snowfields. I clicked out, told myself she probably forgot. People forget. Love remembers. That's how it's supposed to go. At 2:17 p.m., my phone buzzed, landed. Long day ahead. Might crash early. Send me your hotel info? I asked. No reply. Late afternoon, I got a call from my buddy Mark. We've been friends since college. The kind of man who knows the worst parts of you and still shows up with coffee. How's Hannah's big trip? He asked. Fine, I said. Training in Chicago. Which hotel? He said casually. I laughed. You're worse than me. Just asking. You seemed off the other night. I told him about the red dress, the face-down phone, the sudden trip, the missing calendar entry. Saying it out loud made it more real, like tracing a crack in glass with your finger. Maybe it's nothing, Mark said, but his voice didn't believe itself. You want me to swing by later? Game's on. I said, sure. It's easier to ignore the noise in your head when there's a game on the TV and a dog at your feet. At 7:05 p.m., Hannah texted, "Long dinner with team. Reception after. I'll call tomorrow." I stared at that line, reception after, like it was written in a language from a planet where marriages meant less. Everything okay? Mark asked, setting 2 beers on the coffee table. Yeah, I lied. Just work. We watched the 4th quarter. Daisy fell asleep on my toes. Mark dozed off on the couch. I turned the volume down when the commentators started circling back to the same stats. That's when the local news rolled into a segment from Chicago. A live shot, a charity gala, champagne glasses, string quartet. I wouldn't have looked twice. But the camera panned over a woman in a new red dress, laughing up at a man with a jawline that belonged on a billboard. He touched her elbow like the elbow was his. I sat up so fast Daisy jolted awake and barked. Mark blinked, bleary. What? Turn it up, I whispered. My mouth had gone dry. The shot held for a second, just long enough to see the woman tilt her head and reveal the earring I'd given Hannah on our 5th anniversary. The chyron read, Chicago Tech Fundraiser, live, and the anchor said the man's name, Ethan Vale, the VP from Hannah's company she swore she barely knew. Chapter 3. The TV shock eye rewound the clip with shaking hands. Mark didn't say a word. We watched it 3 times, me freezing the frame on that careful, measured smile I'd seen in our kitchen. That's her, I said, as if the room had asked a question. That's Hannah. Mark exhaled through his nose. And that's not training. He wasn't touching her in a way you could put in a report, but I saw it. The private geometry of 2 people leaning too comfortably into the same angle. The camera caught her laughing, then the man whispering something into her hair. Your eyes learn a person's silhouette. I knew hers anywhere. My phone buzzed, reception. Bad signal. Talk tomorrow. Love you. I stared at the words love you like they were a dare. Call her, Mark said. I called. It rang twice and went to voicemail. I tried again. Straight to voicemail. Maybe the signal really is bad, he offered. In a ballroom in downtown Chicago? I said. Signal's great in ballrooms. I know, we got married in one. I walked to the kitchen and leaned on the counter where she'd set her phone face down. Daisy followed me, toenails clicking like a metronome on tile. I replayed the shot again, her red dress, the eyes she saved for me now aimed at Ethan's jokes, the way she tilted her head exposing the delicate pulse at her neck. The pulse I used to kiss when we were 24 and poor and certain we were bulletproof. I typed, I just saw you on the news. You look nice. Call me when you can. Delete. Too needy. I typed, how's training? Delete. Too cowardly. I typed, where are you? Sent. 5 minutes later, networking event. I told you. 3 words that were almost nothing and almost everything. Fly out, Mark said quietly. If you need to see, then see. I'm not chasing my wife across the country, I said. I'm not that guy. But that night, I booked a refundable ticket on miles for the next morning, because sometimes you need to see the wreckage with your own eyes before you can call the tow truck. I didn't sleep. At 2 a.m., I walked the neighborhood with Daisy under orange streetlights, passing houses where other men slept like gravity still worked. I thought about vows and passwords and the way love becomes a habit you forget you're performing. At 3:06 a.m. I watched the clip again. The camera pulled back and caught the 2 of them slipping out a side door, his hand brushing her back. If there was a reasonable explanation, it was hiding behind that door. Chapter 4. The Confrontation. I landed in Chicago with a backpack and a stomach full of rocks. The air smelled like jet fuel and wet concrete. I wasn't there to make a scene. I was there to choose between insanity and proof. At the hotel front desk, I asked for Hannah's last name and company. The clerk typed and smiled professionally. I'm sorry, sir, I don't have anyone by that name. I blinked. Could you check again? I slid a business card across the counter like we were performing a ritual. He checked. Same answer. You might try the Lakeside Plaza, he offered. A lot of corporate trainings moved there this week. I thanked him and walked out into a light drizzle. Lakeside Plaza confirmed her company had a block of rooms, but Hannah's name wasn't on any of them. The list of attendees was not my business, they said. I was not a guest. I was not anything. I sat in the lobby, watching people with lanyards and tote bags and tired smiles. Hannah texted at noon. All-day sessions. Might go dark. Don't worry about me, okay? I typed I'm in Chicago. Let's get lunch. 3 bubbles appeared, then disappeared. Finally, why are you here? Because I saw you laughing in a red dress with a man whose hands know your back. Because our calendar is blank and your phone is face down. Because I once promised to love you even when I hated you. And right now I need to learn what kind of hate this is. I wrote, because I miss you. She sent, you can't just show up. This is work. I looked up and there she was, crossing the lobby in a slate blazer, hair pulled into a twist, lips I knew too well pressed into a line I didn't. For a second, the room pulled away from me like I was underwater. Hannah, I said. She stopped a few feet away. What are you doing? I'm here to take you to lunch. She glanced around as if lunch were a contraband concept. I have a session. Do sessions include gala receptions? I asked softly. Her eyes flicked to mine, then to the left, toward the bar where Ethan Vale stood with 2 other executives checking his watch. He looked taller than on TV, which I hadn't thought was possible. This isn't a good time, she said. It's the perfect time, I said. Because it's now. Don't do this, she whispered. Not here. Then where? I asked. In our kitchen? Where your phone sleeps face down like a cat. On the phone while your signal goes dark in ballrooms? Where is the right place to ask my wife if she's still my wife? Ethan noticed us then. He walked over with a politician's smile. Hannah, he said smoothly, are we… Oh! He extended a hand. You must be… The husband, I said, not taking his hand. Ethan Vale, he said, withdrawing it. Pleasure. The TV made you look shorter, I said before I could stop myself. Hannah flinched. Stop. Of course, Ethan said, recovering. We're due in Hall C. He looked at her like she was an employee or something else. We'll be late. Hannah's mouth moved, but the words never arrived. I felt something settle inside me, a calm like the eye of a storm. Go, I said to her. You should go. We'll talk tonight. She hesitated. Tonight? She echoed. I watched them walk away together, his hand finding the air just behind her back again, like a habit he didn't know he was performing. I'd come for proof. What I got was posture. Chapter 5. The fallout I killed the refundable ticket. I booked a room at a business hotel 3 blocks away and sat on the bed, turning my wedding ring around my finger until the skin underneath felt raw. At 7 p.m., Hannah texted, dinner with execs. Late. Don't wait up. I replied, hotel? She sent an address 2 miles away that wasn't either of the previous hotels. I stared at it as if it were coordinates to a battlefield. At 10:23 p.m., she knocked on my door. The hallway smelled like carpet cleaner and someone else's cologne. She walked in without a hug. We're not doing this in public, she said. Doing what? I asked. The truth? She sunk into the armchair, rubbing her temples. This is a mess. Then clean it up, I said quietly. Start with yes or no. Are you having an affair with Ethan? Her laugh was sharp. That word is dramatic. So that's a yes. It's complicated, she said. Complicated is when your flight gets delayed but you still make the wedding, I said. Complicated is not the word for the red dress you bought for a training that wasn't a training. She stared at me like I was a problem on a whiteboard she'd solve if given enough markers. It started as mentoring, she said. And then things changed. Things, I repeated. Which things? She looked away. I felt invisible at home. There it was, the old hymn of neglect. I'd heard its verses. I'd even sung a few lines. So you made yourself visible in a ballroom, I said gently, with a man who touches your back like a light switch. Tears gathered in her eyes and went nowhere. I didn't plan this. But you packed for it. Silence stretched between us. I wanted her to scream. I wanted her to say anything that sounded like a fight. Fights can be mended. Quiet is a graveyard. I'm sorry, she whispered. For what? I asked. For getting caught? Or for the truth you knew before the gala lights came on? She stood. I need time to think. Think with me, I said. Think here. I can't. She reached for the handle. I'll stay at the company hotel tonight. We'll talk when we're home. Which hotel? I asked, though I already knew the answer was wherever Ethan stays. She hesitated. The Park Line. She left, and the door closed with the finality of a judge's gavel. I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at the imprint her body had left on the armchair cushion, as if it were a map someone forgot to label. I texted Mark. It's real. He called immediately. You want me to fly out? No, I said. There's nothing to rescue. He was quiet for a long moment. Then there's something to rebuild. I don't know if I want to rebuild the house someone else lives in, I said. That night, I lay on the scratchy hotel sheets and listened to laughter in the hallway. Strangers who still knew how to laugh. My ring felt heavy. I slid it off and placed it on the nightstand, where it rolled toward the edge and stopped just short of falling. In the morning, I decided not to catch it if it fell. Chapter 6. The Divorce. We didn't scream. We didn't break plates. We made lists, utilities, accounts, who gets Daisy on which days until we figured out a better plan. Our house became a logistics center with a marriage in the middle like a patient on life support. She moved in with a friend temporarily. 2 weeks later, I saw a photo of her at a rooftop bar. Ethan's hand on her waist, sunlight painting everything a dishonest gold. I hired a lawyer. Not because I wanted to hurt her, but because I wanted to stop hurting in a way that had no edges. My lawyer, a woman named Carlisle who wore navy suits like armor, listened quietly while I told the story. Do you have proof? She asked. Not unkindly, just like a doctor asking if I'd taken my meds. I showed her the clip. The texts, the hotel shift. We didn't sign a prenup, I said. We didn't have anything to protect back then. She nodded. So now we protect you. The first hearing was a month later. I walked into the courtroom with a heart calm like a lake that remembers storms. Hannah looked smaller. Not because she'd lost weight, but because she'd lost the universe we'd built. That universe had contained all the future small things. Apples on the counter, laundry on Sundays, the way she borrowed my hoodies, the way I pretended to be annoyed. Our lawyers spoke a language with teeth. Terms kludged with numbers, dates, irreconcilable. I answered questions, each one a little death for an old life. During a recess, Hannah and I stood apart by the window like strangers pretending to be acquaintances. Hannah, I said, we can be kind. She nodded without looking at me. I want the house. Our house? I asked softly. The one where you told me about your grandmother's recipe cards and we painted the guest room twice because we picked the wrong blue. It has the kitchen I like, she said. I laughed then, not because it was funny, but because sometimes laughter is how grief breathes. Okay, I said, surprising myself. You take the house. I'll take the future. We divided property like soldiers dividing rations. It was fair in the way deserts are fair, every grain of sand equal in its indifference. The divorce was final on a Thursday. I signed my name and felt nothing. Feelings come after paperwork. The judge said the formal words. We stood up. Our marriage lay on the table between us like a note no one felt like reading out loud. Outside, it was sunny. People walked by with coffees and headphones, living in parallel universes where their spouses were still just their spouses. I put my ring in a small cloth pouch and tucked it in my pocket. Mark met me on the courthouse steps with 2 coffees. He handed me one and said nothing. Sometimes that's the best sentence a friend can write. That night, I moved into a small apartment with high windows and a view of the river. It smelled like new paint and unmade decisions. I slept on a mattress on the floor and woke up at 4 a.m. with the kind of clarity that leaves bruises. I wasn't going to survive this by waiting to feel better. I was going to build better. Chapter 7. The Comeback. The first thing I did was clean up my life like it was a messy repo. I cut subscriptions, sold the second car, stopped doom scrolling. I deleted the photo folders I kept reopening like scabs. Then I opened a new Notion page and wrote at the top, Rebuild. I'd been a competent software consultant for years, steady contracts, polite invoices, nothing that made investors sit up straight. But I also had a prototype I'd hacked together on weekends, a lightweight AI-assisted compliance tool for small businesses who couldn't afford enterprise suites. It was good, I knew it. I'd shown it to Hannah once. She'd said, "It's neat, the way people describe a kitchen gadget they'll never use." I called a client I liked and trusted, a logistics company in Ohio that treated me like a partner, not a vendor. "Give me 90 days, I said. "I'll build you something that cuts your paperwork time in half. If it works, you pay me what you think it's worth. If it doesn't, I'll eat the cost." The CFO laughed. "That's not how invoices work." "It is now," I said. I worked like a man who owed himself his life back. Early mornings, long walks at lunch with Daisy. Hannah had agreed to let me keep her after it became clear Daisy chose me by sleeping in the hall outside my door. Late nights fueled by bad coffee and better stubbornness. The product took shape like a city scene from a plane, grids appearing, lights turning on. I named it Latch because it closed doors gently and kept what mattered inside. Mark handled sales in the evenings after his job, dialing leads while I fixed edge cases. On day 61, our Ohio client rolled it out across their 5 warehouses. On day 65, their email landed in my inbox. "We cut form time by 52% this week. What do you want to charge us?" I stared at the screen, suddenly shy. I typed a number and immediately deleted it. Too timid. I doubled it. Sent. They replied in 5 minutes with a signed contract and a question about volume pricing. I closed my laptop and laughed out loud in my empty apartment. It sounded like a new language. Word spread. 2 more clients signed. Then 4. I hired a part-time support engineer. I met with an angel investor at a coffee shop who asked me what I wanted to build if money weren't a problem. "Something that helps the little guys run like the big guys," I said. "Without selling their souls in the fine print?" He chuckled. "You're a poet for a software guy." I shrugged. "I used to be a husband." He wired a seed check big enough to make my hands shake. I moved Latch into a small office with brick walls and windows that made even bad days look better. I put Daisy's bed beside my desk. Mark came on full-time. The first time I saw our logo on a conference banner, my heart did that thing where it remembers you're alive. The second time, a trade journal named us a dark horse. The third time, we landed a contract with a mid-market chain Hannah's company had been chasing for months. I didn't gloat. I didn't text her. I didn't even screenshot the press mention I knew she'd see. I just kept building. Everything old had fallen away. The part of me that begged was gone. The part that waited for a text in a ballroom was gone. What remained was lighter. That's when the email arrived from an address I knew too well, Hannah. Chapter 8. The reunion, the subject line was empty. The message was short. "Congratulations." I saw the article. "I'm happy for you." I stared at it for a long time. There were 1,000 things she could have said, and she chose those 9 words. I typed, "Thank you." "How are you?" She replied, "Can we talk?" "Just coffee, no agenda." I sat with that for a day. I called Mark. "Do I go?" "Do you want to?" he said. "I don't know," I said honestly. "I want to, or I want to not want to. I'm tired of fog." "Then go," he said. "And don't promise yourself anything but honesty." We met at a cafe near the river on a Sunday afternoon that looked like a postcard. Families, strollers, a busker playing something that made older couples sway. Hannah looked older. Not in a cruel way. In the way pain does honest work. She wore no makeup and a gray sweater I'd always liked. When she smiled, it reached all the way up to the part of her eyes that used to hold back. "Hi," she said. "Hi," I said. For a minute, we just held our mugs and pretended this was normal. "I heard about Latch," she said. "It's impressive." "Thank you," I said. She nodded, looking down. "I messed everything up. I didn't rescue her." "Yes," I said, not unkindly. "I thought I needed more," she said. "I thought you were stuck and I panicked." She swallowed. "I made myself small by chasing something that made me feel big. I'm sorry." There it was. No calendar, no red dress, no lies. Just the thing itself, named. "I was gone too," I said. "Not in the way you were, but I was absent in my own house." "I ignored the way you were disappearing." We let that sit. People always want neat villains. The truth is duller and sharper. 2 people fail each other in invisible increments until a visible thing happens. How's Ethan? I asked after a moment. She smiled sadly. Gone. We ended after a few months. It wasn't love, it was a mirror I liked looking into. For a while, I nodded. I hope he finds his mirrors in better places. She laughed through her nose. You always did that. What? Turn the blade into a spoon. I shrugged. I'm trying to use fewer blades in general. We walked by the river until the sun got tired. She told me about therapy. I told her about Daisy sleeping under my desk. She asked about my mother's health. I asked about her sister's law school. It felt like being two people who used to love each other deeply and still cared if the other person slept. At the pedestrian bridge, she stopped. I don't expect anything, she said. I just wanted to say sorry and that I'm proud of you and that you deserved better. I looked out at the water. The light turned the surface into 1,000 coins flipping. We both did, I said. Is there? She began, then stopped. No, that's not fair. What? To ask for another chance. I exhaled. The part of me that wanted to go back was nostalgic, not honest. The part that had learned to cook for one and laugh again knew the difference. I forgive you, I said, but I don't have a second version of the same life to give. She nodded. A tear escaped, the expensive kind you only spend on the truest moments. I thought you'd say that. I'm glad you did. We hugged, carefully like moving furniture through a narrow doorway. It didn't spark. It didn't need to. 2 days later, an invitation arrived that would decide how our story ended in public. Chapter 9. The Public Exposure, a Regional Business Awards Gala. Black tie. Latch had been nominated for Emerging Company of the Year. I'd never owned a tux. Mark said we'd rent matching ones and pretend to be suave. I expected a rubber chicken dinner, a plaque, a handshake. What I didn't expect was the seating chart. Our table's sponsor, Hannah's company. Our table mates, executives I recognized from LinkedIn. And at the center of their table across the room, Ethan Vale, doing what he does best, looking like a press release. When we checked in, the organizer beamed. You're across from the stage, right next to Vale Stratagem. Isn't that perfect? Young disruptors beside seasoned leaders? Mark whispered, You good? I'm good, I said. And weirdly, I was. During cocktails, I saw Hannah enter with her team. She looked beautiful in a simple navy dress, the kind you wear when you're done performing. Our eyes met. She gave a small, private nod. Ethan approached our cluster with a smile that didn't use his eyes. Mr. Carter, I said, offering my hand. We haven't met properly. Ethan Vale, he said, pumping twice. I've heard of Latch. Nice little tool. Thanks, I said. We like building little things that do big work. He smirked. The big work is complex. The relationships, especially. Agreed, I said, meeting his eyes. The relationships are everything. He blinked just once and moved on to shake Mark's hand. Mark squeezed back too hard on purpose. It's the small joys. We took our seats. The keynote was the usual stew of optimism and buzzwords. I checked my notes for the acceptance speech I didn't expect to give. When they announced our category, my heart did a drum solo. And the Emerging Company of the Year goes to Latch. The room applauded, and I stood up in the tux I didn't own. Mark thumped my back. I walked to the stage, feeling the old fear slip away like a coat you finally stop wearing. I shook hands, took the award, and stepped to the mic. The lights were bright enough to make the room a blur. But I could see the two faces I needed to see. Mark, my brother in everything but DNA, and Hannah, sitting very still, like this moment belonged to us all in a complicated way. Thank you, I began. We built Latch to help small teams move like big ones without losing their souls in the paperwork. A company's real edge is its people and their time. I paused. The line I'd written next was about growth metrics. Instead, I said, This season of my life taught me something personal. When doors close, you can rattle the handle and wake the whole building, or you can build a better door. We chose the second thing. I didn't look at Ethan, but I felt him there, sharp and annoyed, a man allergic to metaphors he can't turn into a slogan. We're grateful for every no that made us hone our yes, I finished. To my team, to our early clients, and to those who believed when belief was a luxury. Thank you. Applause. Cameras. The sound of cutlery resuming like a tide. Back at the table, a woman from PR asked for a quote. Ethan leaned over her shoulder. "Nice speech," he said tightly. A touch. Personal. "Business is personal," I said. "That's why it matters." He offered a thin smile. "We'll see how long you last when the grown-up contracts start." I smiled back. "We already signed one you pitched last quarter." For the first time, I saw it, the hairline crack in his composure. It was small, but I collect small things. After dessert, the band struck up something too loud for this many suits. People mingled. I found Hannah near the balcony doors. "You were gracious," she said. "And brave." "I just told the truth," I said. She glanced past me. "He's furious." "That's not my business anymore." "No," she said softly. "It isn't." We stepped onto the balcony. The night air was a reprieve. The city glowed not like a promise, but like a fact. "I'm happy for you," she said again, but this time it felt like a prayer she meant. "Thank you," I said. "I'm happy for me, too." She laughed, wiping a tear. "Good, it looks good on you." We stood there, side by side, two people who had failed each other and somehow found a way not to fail ourselves. Inside, the music swelled. Outside, the wind moved the tablecloths like a hello. When I turned back, I saw Ethan watching us through the glass, calculating angles in a party where everyone else had stopped counting. I realized I was, finally, not a supporting character in my own life. Chapter 10. The lesson learned people like endings. Maybe that's why we invented credits, to assure ourselves that something is over. But life doesn't do endings on cue. It does continuations with better lighting. In the months after the gala, Latch grew. We hired 4 more engineers. We lost a bid we desperately wanted, then won one we hadn't expected. I slept through the night most nights. On the others, I walked Daisy under a sky that looked like unfinished business and came back lighter. Hannah and I spoke occasionally. Birthdays, a text when her sister passed the bar, a photo of Daisy in a ridiculous Halloween costume. We were kind. I learned that kindness is not the same as invitation. It is its own complete sentence. One afternoon, I got coffee at the same river cafe where we'd met. The barista asked if I wanted the usual, and I realized I had one. I took my cup outside and watched a couple argue gently over a stroller strap that wouldn't clip. They solved it together and laughed at the absurdity of plastic. It was not a grand love story. It was better. It was a daily one. I used to think revenge looked like humiliation, loud and public, a movie ending with swelling strings and a freeze frame on someone else's regret. Now I think revenge is quieter. It's loving your life so well that your past can't stand the volume. If you're listening to this because you saw a man on TV with your wife or your husband, or with the person you thought would be your person forever, I don't have advice. I have this: you are not the worst thing that happened to you. You are what you build after. The last time I saw Ethan, months later, was at an airport gate. He walked by with a carry-on designed to be seen. He didn't see me at first. When he did, he nodded, a quick, professional acknowledgement. The nod men give when they recognize a rival they can't quantify. I nodded back, not because I forgave him, because I didn't need anything he owned, including his apology. On the plane, I opened my laptop and reviewed a proposal. It was ambitious and slightly terrifying. The kind of ambition we once whispered about in bed at 24, when we believed the world owed us a favor. It didn't, it never does, but it rewards those who stop asking and start making. When we landed, my phone buzzed with a photo from Mark, Daisy asleep under the office whiteboard, a sticky note on her back saying QA Dept. I laughed alone in the aisle, the good kind, the kind that doesn't ask anyone's permission. I walked out into a city that had broken my heart, and then held it while I put it back together. The air smelled like rain on warm concrete. A woman at the curb hailed a taxi and held the door for an older man behind her. The driver helped with the suitcase. Small human things. The true orchestra. At home, I put my award on the bookshelf not because it meant I'd won, but because it meant I hadn't quit. I cooked pasta with too much garlic and ate it standing at the counter, the way single men in movies always do, except this didn't feel lonely. It felt like a rehearsal for joy. Before bed, I took the cloth pouch from the drawer and pulled out my ring. It was still a circle, still itself. I turned it in my fingers, then placed it in a small wooden box, the kind with a lid that closes with a soft click. I wasn't burying it. I was archiving it, like code you don't run anymore but keep around to remember how you learned. I slept. I dreamed of a door with a new latch that clicked softly and held. In the morning, I woke up and turned on the coffee maker. The machine hissed and sang. Sunlight landed on the floor like a promise. I texted Mark. "Let's ship 2.0 by Q3. He replied, "Let's ship it by Q2. I smiled and wrote, "Deal." Chapter 11. The Second Door. The morning after I promised Mark we'd try for Q2, I woke before my alarm. It's funny how discipline sneaks up on you. One day you're a man waiting for texts, the next you're a man making road maps. I brewed coffee and stood by the window, watching the street wake up. Dog walkers, a jogger, a bakery truck sighing to a stop. Daisy thumped her tail against the floor, then rolled over like she was trying to stretch the night out of her spine. "Big day," I told her, scratching the spot behind her ear. "Bugs to squash. Lives to reorganize." She sneezed and looked very serious about it. At the office, I wrote 3 things on the whiteboard: focus, friction, follow-through. They were less a strategy than a promise. Latch wasn't just code anymore. It was a way of being, closing gently, holding firmly, letting the right things in. By 10 a.m., we were in the zone. Mark conducted calls like a symphony. Warm where he needed to be, fierce where he had to be. Marisol, our new support lead, charted patterns that told the truth about where customers struggled. We ran a quick stand-up, no motivational speeches, no theatrics, just work. At noon, my phone buzzed with an unknown number. I let it ring once, twice, then picked up. "Carter," a voice said, smooth as paper. "This is Vale Stratagem. I'm calling on behalf of our VP, Mr. Vale, to discuss potential collaboration." "I'm listening," I said, because one thing heartbreak teaches you is that listening costs less than guessing. "We're interested in a partnership pilot," the voice continued. "A bundle where your tool complements our compliance suite. Cross-promotion, profit-sharing, the usual." I kept my voice level. "Send the deck." "By EOD," she said. "And congratulations on your award." After I hung up, I stared at the whiteboard. Focus, friction, follow-through. "Was that who I think it was?" Mark asked, peeking in. "His office," I said. He whistled. "You going to play ball?" I thought about Hannah's nod across that ballroom, about the way Ethan's smile had hairline cracks, about how easy it is to turn vengeance into a job title. "I'm going to read the deck," I said. "And then I'm going to say no if it costs us our soul." Mark grinned. There he is. That afternoon, an email arrived from an unexpected corner. Hannah. Subject, "Thank you." Body, "For the balcony." For the truth. For not burning the house down on your way out of it. "I hope you keep building doors that fit your hands." H, I wrote back, "Thank you for the apology. Thank you for letting go. We're okay. No ellipses, no questions. Kindness, full stop." 2 days later, I took Daisy to the park by the river. The light did that thing it does late in the day where everything looks like it remembers something. A frisbee sailed past. Daisy pretended she was too dignified to chase it, and then chased it anyway. "Excuse me," a voice said beside me. I turned to see a woman with a camera and a volunteer badge. The park hosted a weekend adoption fair, and she was photographing the dogs. "Would you mind if I take a picture of yours?" "She looks like the kind who writes emails." "She's head of QA," I said. "Approves nothing." The woman laughed. "I'm Ava." She crouched and showed Daisy the lens like a handshake. "You're very important, I can tell." "Carter," I said. She took some shots, all patience and soft sounds, then stood. "What do you do, Carter?" "I make tiny things for people who do big work," I said before I could overthink it. "That sounds like an honest job." "It is," I said. "Honest jobs are rare." She smiled, not like a measured thing, but like a reflex. "You look like a man who learned that the hard way." "I did," I said. "I'm better for it." We talked about the dogs, the river, the city, nothing dangerous, nothing loaded. When she asked for my email so she could send the photos, I gave it without bracing for anything. It felt like lending a book you love to someone who might actually read it. That night, the deck from Vale Stratagem hit my inbox. Slick slides, sunny projections, a paragraph about strategic synergies that felt like a dentist praising your gums while reaching for the drill. The terms looked generous, the kind that bake the cost into your future. I wrote notes in the margins. Cross-promo, or we become their friendly add-on. Revenue share, we do the work, they narrate the story. Integration clause, slow us down to their speed. Then I closed the file and took Daisy for a late walk. The sky was clear enough to see the constellations the city usually eats. I thought about doors. How some you open, some you walk past, and some you build from scratch at the end of a hallway no one else believes in. The next morning I sent a polite decline. No drama, no knife twist, just a boundary shaped like a sentence. Their reply was curt and professional, the language of people who mistake no for war. I poured coffee, sat at my desk, and felt a steadiness that used to be foreign. It turns out the opposite of revenge isn't forgiveness. It's direction. A week later, Ava emailed the photos. Daisy looked presidential. In one shot, I was in the background laughing, the kind of unguarded laugh that doesn't need to be brave. Want the full res? She wrote. I can drop them in a folder. Please do, I replied. We'll put one on the office wall. QA needs an official portrait. We kept emailing about cameras and coffee places that didn't burn the beans, about the city's best sidewalks for thinking. After a month of this polite orbit, I asked if she wanted to try a new taco truck that parked under the elm trees on Thursdays. I'll be the one with salsa on my sleeve, she said. At lunch, she listened the way good editors do, without hunting for a headline. I told her about Latch without pitching it, about Daisy without pretending she'd taught me philosophy. She told me about the shelter and how sometimes the right family was the second or third one, and how that didn't make the dog lesser. It made the dog lucky. We didn't talk about Hannah or Ethan, not because they were forbidden words, but because our present had enough weight without setting out antique plates. When I walked her back to the shelter, she paused at the gate. You seem quiet in a way that isn't empty, she said. I like that. Me too, I said, and meant both the quiet and the liking. Back at the office, Marisol waved me over. Customer in Ohio says your last patch made their month, she said. Wants to expand. Tell them we'll earn it, I said. I wrote earn it under focus, friction, follow-through. The board was getting crowded with small sentences that made big promises. On my way out that evening, I passed the conference room where our first second-hand desk still wobbled if you leaned on it. I kept it on purpose, like my ring in that wooden box. Not as an anchor, as a map. Proof of where we started so we never romanticize where we fell. At home, I opened the balcony door and let the cool air edit the day. The city wasn't forgiving. It was indifferent. Somehow that made everything simpler. Indifference is a blank page. What you write there is on you. I set 2 bowls on the floor. One for Daisy's dinner, one for water. She wagged at the bowls like they were old friends returning from a trip. I poured myself a glass of seltzer and watched the bubbles do what bubbles do best. Rise. My phone buzzed. A text from Hannah. My sister passed her first case today. She asked about you. I told her you were good. I hope that's okay. It is, I replied. Tell her well done. Another buzz. Ava. The shelter's doing a Sunday photo walk. Want to bring QA and supervise? We'll be there, I wrote. She insists on creative control. Daisy looked up as if she understood the plan. Maybe she did. Dogs are fluent in intention. I stood at the window and thought about all the doors I'd tried, all the handles I'd rattled, all the thresholds I'd crossed since a night when a red dress turned my life into a new language. I thought about the man I'd been, angry, begging, paused, and the man I was now, calm, making, moving. If this were a movie, maybe I'd give you a scene where Ethan begs for a deal and I deliver a monologue that breaks him. Or a scene where Hannah asks for one more chance and I take it or I don't, and either way we cry. But this isn't a movie. It's a life with a dog who snores and a product roadmap with deadlines and a woman who might become something or might remain a friend who takes good pictures. The lesson is the same either way. Build the door, decide who gets a key, change the locks when you need to, keep the hinges oiled, let the light in. I turned off the kitchen light, the room settling into a softer version of itself. The box with the ring stayed closed in the drawer. The laptop hummed with drafts of the future. The city breathed. I breathed with it. And somewhere in a building where people still mistook other people for trophies, a man rehearsed a speech he'd never get to give. That wasn't my story anymore. Mine was in the small things, The click of a latch, the scratch of a pen, the sound a dog makes when she dreams. If you want a lesson, I'll give you the only one I trust. Build the life that can't be taken from you. Titles can be taken. Houses can be taken. Even people for a time can be taken. But what you build in yourself, skills, courage, grace, stays. My wife went on a business trip. I saw her on TV with another man. The small things told me the truth. So I listened. And then I built something truer.